and privilege to introduce my friend, my fellow brother in Christ, and my fellow warrior, America's General.
He's a great pastor, but this was a first sergeant in the United States Marine Corps right here, 21 years. Wow. Yeah. All the veterans out there, raise your hand. Any veterans? Yeah, look at that. Imagine this guy is your first sergeant in the United States Marine Corps, right? Wow. I'm ready to go to war right now. I'm ready to go to battle. I'm going to go to battle with this man. Unbelievable. Woo! Can I say that? You did? I guess when we're in Florida, right? And he's carrying. That's a pastor. Wow. So, anyway, wow. We weren't really sure when Pastors for Trump and Jackson pulled this thing together. Actually, probably 6 months ago or so, when he first had the idea, and then bringing this together here. So, as I look around and I see people in the audience that I have seen many, many times. I think this is our 21st event that we have done with these ReAwaken America Tour. And which is amazing because when you think about it, this is like a family. And I re-met Nadine and Arlene and Louie and Nella and Ashton and Melissa, Lori, Charlita, Jean, Robbie, all these people that I know from just the last couple of years. Amen. Where, people from all over the country, the young lady from Los Angeles. They came out from Los Angeles today. Others from Northern California. Others from Oklahoma, from Kentucky, from St. Louis, from Dallas, San Antonio, Kansas City, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Hawaii. I love it. There's a unit in the military. It's called the 82nd Airborne Division. And the 82nd Airborne Division, we're going through this. I'm talking about a spiritual, cultural shift in our country. We're going through this whole thing in the military where they're changing the names of bases, right? Of our military bases. When you rip history out of the fabric of a country like ours, that's a sign that they're really trying to change things, folks. And at Fort Bragg, North Carolina, there's people from North Carolina here tonight. So my wife and I, we've been married 42 years this past week. 42 years. Embarrassing you. Fun. I always say you gotta like the one you love. Yeah. That's good counsel. Yeah. See, she's yelling at me right now. So, but this idea, it's like because of everybody from where you are coming from. And in this unit that I served a long time in, jumped out of a lot of airplanes, went to a lot of battlefields with them. It's called the 82nd Airborne Division, and they're known as the All-Americans. They're known as the All-Americans. And that name actually came from World War I. When we were battling in World War I, and they started to form these different units to go over to fight, the Hessians and the Huns at that time, right? The idea was people were coming into Fort Bragg, North Carolina, a place called Fayetteville, North Carolina, even then. When they were coming in, it was a straight leg infantry unit. Now it's an airborne infantry unit. And at the time, they started looking around, and there was some sergeant who finally said, where are these? Where are you from? Where are you from? Where are you from? And the first commanding general that came in, he was asked, well, we're supposed to designate this unit, we're supposed to give it a name. We have a heritage of numbers, so it's going to be called the 82nd, but what should we title ourselves? And some young sergeant said, we're from all over America. And the guy said, well, why don't we call ourselves the All-Americans? It's a fascinating story because it really tells about who we are. Okay, we are all Americans. And the one thing that is happening in this country, and it's happening because it's intentional. It's intentional. This is, and I don't want to get into, if I get into the biblical side of things, Leon knows this, Bishop Leon knows I get in all kinds of trouble. I get into all kinds of trouble, But what I do know is I know warfare. I know warfare. I know physical warfare. I know emotional warfare. I know intellectual warfare. And when I see it, I know it, spiritual warfare. Amen. And we are involved because it's this total destruction of the fabric of who we are. And it's not, happenstance. I talk to people all the time, all over the country. All over the country. And that camera right there, this gentleman that's in front of me here with the blue shirt, and that's actually live streaming over to Europe tonight. And there's a lot of... Because when we think about ourselves, in the 15 and 1600s, when we talk about biblical things, how was this country formed? Because there was religious persecution going on in Europe. People were being enslaved, they were being killed, beheaded, you name it. Talk about torture and persecution for a couple of 100 years. And then all of a sudden there started to be this movement of people because they wanted to be able to practice, they wanted to be able to do the things that we do in this country. It was a couple of 100 years before this country was ever formed. It was a very famous sermon. I love this sermon. And I think it was 1630, a bishop by the name of Winthrop, or a pastor by the name of Winthrop, and they have about 6 ships, and they're coming out of England. They're going to depart England because they're basically being thrown out in some sense, and they're going to get on that ship and they're going to travel across the dangerous Atlantic. 1630. Okay, and Winthrop was his name. He ended up becoming the first mayor of Boston at the time. So he gives this sermon, and in the sermon, it's a beautiful sermon. You should look it up. Winthrop is his name. The sermon was, I think, 1630 or 1631, and he talks to his congregation, and there's a couple of things that come out of that sermon, and he uses this phrase: "We are going in search of a New England." Okay, so that's where that's coined. We're going in search of a New England. Okay, a new place. Because they were being persecuted. It wasn't just in England at the time, it was all throughout Europe. The other thing that he talked about was he said that we are going to find that city on the hill. Okay, now, to me, I'm thinking, man, this is unbelievable, that this is where, because we always remember the speech by Ronald Reagan who said, "Shining city on the hill." He used that phrase quite often in many of his speeches. And then I found out that this bishop, this pastor, Winthrop, actually used it. And I said, man, that's a beautiful phrase, right? When we talk about, John F. Kennedy uses the beacon, right? He talks about this beacon of light. And I've used the phrase, this true North Star, which is what America is and what America always is in search of. So I looked up that phrase, "city on a hill." And actually it comes out of the Bible. Amen. It comes out of Matthew. Matthew, and I forget which verse and chapter, but Matthew. So Matthew talked about, this idea of a city on a hill. And I think at the time, because I don't know if Aaron is here tonight, but Aaron is one of the, Aaron Antis is a great guy, and he's here somewhere. And Aaron is a wonderful, wonderful human being. Aaron always says this thing, and it stuck with me. He says that God chose Israel. Okay, God chose Israel. But America chose God. And one of the things that we have to remember, that what this nation, what our Bible says, and what our Constitution was crafted upon. If you look at if you read any of the Federalist Papers, and there's many of them, there's many Federalist Papers, and I recommend that you read some of them. Even if you just go in and read the summaries, you can go look up summaries of the Federalist Papers. I mean, Hamilton is a masterful writer. So you look at the Federalist Papers, you look at the Constitution, you read the Declaration of Independence. It takes, probably 2 minutes to read the Declaration of Independence. It probably takes a good reader 45 minutes to an hour to read the Constitution. It's just such a beautiful, it's a visionary document. But when you read the history, so those historians that have really dug into who we are as a country, how are we founded? The Judeo-Christian principles and values that we were founded upon, right? They're strong, they're a bedrock of who we are. That all of the historians, but the best place to look are in the writings of the founders of this country. Their letters to their sons and daughters, their letters to their wives back home, right? The things that they said to each other, and they were a lot of learned people at the time. They were writing all the time, and all you have to do is read what they wrote. Some of these beautiful letters that have been captured and captured historically. And they always return to something out of the Bible. And that was how this country was created. So you go from a guy like Pastor Winthrop, and you fast forward another 100 and whatever, 50, 60, 70 years, whatever the numbers are, and we get to the Revolutionary War, and you get to a group of people, and they go, we're willing to give up everything. We're willing to give up everything. And so now you fast forward to where we are today. And you hear this beautiful music. This beautiful music from this beautiful young man. And I look at that and I say to myself, that's divine. Amen. It's divine. Yes. All of us. Yes. Each of us. Okay? And I've met a lot of you guys. I've met a lot of you over the last couple of years. As I look around this room, I bet you I've met a third of this room at some point in time. And I remember the faces, and I know who you are and what you are doing. There's a lot of activism in this room. There's a lot of people that do get involved. And I appreciate that. What we have to do, because it's this, I could get into and Roger's going to get up here in a minute and talk about a master of the political space in our country. And another person who has just become a very, very dear friend. But we've created a family. So now that family, and I'm part of a big family. I got 9 brothers and sisters. My wife does 7. Big families can be ugly. Big families fight. We fight with each other, but don't, like we say in our family, fight like a Flynn. We'll fight like the Dickens amongst ourselves, but you come after us, and you're going to come after a clan that will not quit, will not give in. The other thing, too, that I want people to understand is that tears, okay? Because I'm listening to Jimmy this beautiful, beautiful song. And I'm like getting tears in my eyes. And I'm thinking to myself that something that I have come to believe in. And I see, a lot of people, you get tears in your eyes sometimes. And what I tell people is, don't ever take a tear as a sign of weakness. Okay? What a tear means is a sign of determination. Right? It means that you're determined. You're determined to take care of your children. You're determined to take care of your family. You're determined to take care of your community, to do the things that you can do for your community, for your churches. If you don't like the church, cross the street, go across town. Find a church that understands that without this cloth, they can't preach the Bible. They can't. want people to understand that a couple of things is to, when we talk about, I talk about this all the time. I use this phrase, local action has a national impact. Local action has a national impact. You get involved in your school board, your county somewhere, county commissioners or elections or all these different activities that you can do. And you get in there and you mix it up and you fight. These people are going to lie, they're going to cheat, they're going to steal. And I've been called every name in the book. I mean, I said to my friend Nadine earlier, how many of these you've been? You've been to 8 or 10 of these, maybe all 21 of them. And we talked about it, because she asked me, for a friend of hers, about why don't you have a lot of hate in your heart? I mean, after all the stuff that you've been through, right? And I always tell, and I tell people this, and maybe you've heard me say this about warfare. When you go to war, you don't attack the enemy because you hate the enemy. You attack the enemy because you love your country. And you love that person on your left. You love that person on your right, and you have gotten to know them intimately. My father is deceased. He's a World War II and Korea War veteran, and he always taught us kids, there's no atheists in a foxhole. Okay? Because trust me, I know guys, when all of a sudden you're going to get on a couple of helicopters and you're going to go somewhere, you're going to go into a raid somewhere, and you know that there's people that are going to try to kill you, and you go, let's say a prayer before we board those helicopters. Believe me, every one of those people that said, I ain't gonna, they're over there going, bless me, Father, for I have sinned. Believe me. And you squeeze, and you hug, and you're quiet. And suddenly you feel good. And fear doesn't go away. You begin to control it. Okay, you have a sense of control of that emotion. And it's really, really powerful. And when we are able to do that as a nation, certainly as a body of people here tonight, but when we're able to control that emotion of fear, okay, because a lot of people they are in fear of what is happening. Many, many people around this country that don't have much, but they have the ability to pray. And we need to control that emotion of fear. We need to overcome that. And when we overcome that, believe me, nothing can stop us. Nothing will stop us. I'll finish. Now I'm going to finish on kind of an administrative note. Because we sat and had a bite to eat before we came up over here, down in one of the restaurants here. And so I said, what the hell, I'm going to call Trump. So I called him up, and he's a good man. He's a great guy, And I said, man, you really screwed up last night. Just to bust his chops, He started, we have a good relationship. He started laughing a little bit. And I said, no, you really did a good thing. I said, if CNN had actually been taking a humble pill and been a little bit more professional, and ask smart questions, because you had a Republican town hall going on, CNN's ratings, and everybody would have thought, man, CNN's back. But they did. And so this is what I said. I said to them was that we have to be relentless. We have to be relentless, because we have to know, and if you haven't figured this out yet, the evil that we are facing will not give in until we take over. Okay? And so I know the managing, the guy who runs this place, this beautiful place. You know, one of the things I was talking about to some folks earlier today, every place that you go to that's owned by, within the Trump enterprise, whether somebody talked to you guys were going to the winery up in North Carolina, this place, all these places you go to, I guarantee you that the staff here will be so professional. And they're not just being that way because we're here. They're like that all the time. No matter what part of the Trump enterprise you go to, I don't care whether it's wine, hotels, golf courses, or selling jewelry. They're always very courteous, professional, because that's the culture that is created by the guy at the top. And I say that because what they will continue to do is they will continue to attack. Okay? They were trying to draw him into the gates of hell last night. And he stood there at the gates of hell and said, try it. Try it. So, for all of those that are here, I want you to really just ask to, thank these people that are servants here in this beautiful place that we're at. And I know some people are staying in other close by hotels. Thank you so much for being here and for all that you're doing. And when you walk out of here in a couple of days, because you're going to get a master's degree here in the next 48 hours, okay? In all kinds of things. The education that you get. These ReAwaken tours are not just rah-rah sessions. This is about you, and you got to figure out what you're going to go do when you leave here. Okay? Because we're going to continue to do the kinds of things that we do, but it really is going to take all of us to get involved. All Americans, right? All Americans. God bless you all, and God bless America. Thank you.